So today I just released a video where I showed how I created this magic homing missile projectile, and I said that when I get time I'll record a tutorial. Luckily I got the time in just 6 hours to record a video. So I'm just going to do that. So what we are creating today is this stuff. So if I go in here, let me show you guys. If I do left click, this is what we are doing. We are creating projectile which can also interact with some stuff which would do damage and all based on your character. So you could see. So you could see, if the thing is, if I go very far, it doesn't reach there. It goes into the ground. I think it has to do with homing acceleration, but you could see that if it touches the ground, it will get destroyed. If it touches this stuff, it will get destroyed and do some sparks. Now again, I didn't put much effort into creating the projectiles, but you could create any animation in the Niagara particles and it would work with this projectile. So it's very easy to change any projectile that you have, or any Niagara particle animation that you have, and it would just work. For example, if I go to my projectile, I can simply just change this Niagara particle to anything and it would change it to that missile or whatever you created in the Niagara particles, and it would have the homing function and all. And I also showed that I actually created this by watching this Breeze E Game Studios Unreal Engine Niagara tutorial, where he showed how to create this particle, this animation, which is homing missile. But the problem was that creating or making it into a missile that does damage was kind of annoying. I asked in Discord and they said that I shouldn't do it that way. Basically, what I was doing is this is one single Niagara emitter, and whenever it touches or it collides something, it will spawn let's say a line trace, and then it will check if the line trace is some kind of actor or not, and if the actor is the particular actor which should be taking damage or not, then it will do damage. And the process was kind of annoying to do it, so I just decided to try this different method, which is very easy. And again, shout out to this guy, because I would never be able to make this missile in the first place, but I did change it to something that works for me, which is shooting it manually. So let's get started. So I am in this empty world, and you could see this is how it looks. It is a third-person template, but it works with like any first-person and anything. So I'm using third-person template in this one. Doesn't really matter which one you use. First thing we will do is create the VFX for the projectile. So let's go in here and create a Niagara system. And we will select empty, not completely empty, but empty. This one is different, I think, use as a base. It is from Cascade to Niagara, which is old, so we make sure to select empty. Call it ns understyle homing, or doesn't even need to be homing, just call it missile or something. Let's double click this. Now it's a good practice to actually create like a Niagara emitter. So if you go in here, I don't know where it is, let's just search for Niagara. Here in the Niagara emitter, and you basically create like each emitter like this, so that you could reuse it. So when you, let's say, create something, you could go in here and then just add it, and you just can reuse it again and again. So instead of creating like everything in one system, you could create different systems, so each one of this in its own individual emitter, and then it just turns into reusable stuff, which is a good practice. But for simplicity of this video, I'm going to use and make it in this Niagara missile system. Okay, so first thing first, we can actually rename this and call it missile_tutorial. And then first we need to start spawning some particles. So we go in here and then search for spawn rate, and then we can say like spawn 5 of them, and you could see suddenly it starts showing the sprite whichever was shown around here. So if I double click on this one, this is what's been shown. It is the free material, or like the default material, and we are good with this one, so let's keep it default. In this spawn rate, we are spawning 5 every second, but it is on top of each other, so it's not paying or doing anything. Then we go to initialize particle size, and we need to set this uniform sprite size. If you don't do that, then the next step would not work. which is why I actually did this and was confused why it was not working. But again, I haven't set this, so I'm recording it again. And here we could set something like 20 size, or let's make it 30. If you want some difference, then you could make like 5 and then 50, and there would be some difference, but I want them to be same size, so I'm making it 30. In the particle spawn, I'm going to do some velocity to fix issue, and that way we could see some like velocity happening. We are going to remove this velocity later. So, and if you want to use like the same method of moving in here, make sure to turn this into this orbit mode, untick this orbit mode, and then you would be able to move. If you press F, it will basically bring it to the right location. In here, in the particle update, so the particle spawn happens when it spawns, and then the particle update happens every frame. So if you want to add any velocity around here in the spawn, it is only going to be applied at the start, but if you add anything in here, it would apply every single time it is moving. So in here, we will actually do is to scale sprite size. Okay, search for it. Again, this is sprite, right? If you were using any other renders like ribbon render, then it would be called scale ribbon size, or basically that. And you could see how this is going. It is going from small to big. We don't want that. We want it to be opposite. It needs to go full size to lower size, and this would kind of give this like a trail like shape like this. And if we go to initialize particle, you can make this be lower, so like only 1 second, and it basically creates this shape. If we go to now, where is it, initialize particle, go to color and do direct set. Here we can select a color. So I want to do, let's say for this video, I'll do green like this, but again it doesn't look good. For that, you need to go into value and make this something like high, and it will basically make it be like emissive kind of shape. Don't worry if it looks weird in here, but again, if you do 500, it would be like a lot. 50 would be something like this. I'll do 100, and you would see that it is starting to look more of a neon like shape. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the velocity, or maybe let's disable it. Okay, let's not remove it, and I'm going to go in here and add this around here, and you could see that if I move it, it basically spawns one particle of 5 spawn rate. So what's my spawn rate? 5. So it spawns like 5, and then you could say it's not that good. So if the projectile was moving at quick speed, you would not actually see much like this. So we could do is we could make the spawn rate be like something like 100, and then see, and you could see this is how it goes. It is now a very big trail. So maybe we can reduce this. Let's see if we should reduce this, or should we reduce our lifetime. So again, I think we should make 100. I don't know if using 100 is good idea or not, or how much is good. So if anyone is like much more familiar with particle system and all, then please let me know if using 100 is okay or not. We will go to lifetime and probably make it like 0.5 or something. Even lower, I guess, 0.3. Okay, I guess for time being we can do that. Now what I want to do is I want it to actually, let's add velocity again. Why is it not working, adding velocity? Not sure why enabling this isn't working. Let's try doing from point. It's still not working. Why is that? Okay, maybe the value is low. Okay, so 100 works. Try with different values, maybe make it bigger and see if that works. Let's make it like 200. Okay, there we go. Now what I want to do is wherever this particle is getting spawned, I want to spawn some embers. So I'll create another emitter, or maybe let's just copy this one, why not, and call it as ember. We will remove our spawn rate because we don't want to use spawn rate from here, we want to spawn it based on this one. Let's remove this. We don't want velocity. We are also going to remove velocity from here later. Let's remove scale sprite size. I don't want to, or maybe let's just keep it. It will also go smaller. We can keep the color and all same. Actually, we will reduce this one. So if I isolate this one, nothing's showing up, because what we need to do is in our emitter update, I want to search for spawn particle from other emitter to fix issues. Click in here and do fix issues. It still isn't working. What is this? Okay, let's do fix issue and everything is done. Now you could say it says a warning, but basically that means that we haven't selected like from where it should spawn. So we are saying that spawn from this emitter, that warning would go. And what we are doing is for every one of them we are spawning 10 of it like this, and this is limit basically. So because this one is spawning based on this one, so this can actually get like very crazy. So every 100 it is spawning like 10 of it, right? Not every 100, every one of it is spawning 10. So for 100 spawn we are spawning like 1000 I guess. So in the spawn particles from other emitter, we can actually reduce this. Go into the initialize and make it small. I want to do random uniform, so from 5 to 10 maybe. And what I want to do is I want to add some curl noise force. So basically curl noise force does one simple thing. It adds noise and makes it move like very randomly. So if I make this to be, let's say something like 500, and then in here I also want to increase the lifetime because I want this one to last longer, the embers, like this. And it looks weird. I don't know why it looks weird in here. If I remove, let's say, velocity, you could see it still looks weird. But the curl noise force basically adds like force in like very random direction. It uses noise, I guess, for random direction. This is like frequency. So something like this. Just play around with values. I don't really know which values to use. I just play around. Make sure to remove velocity. We can also remove solve, force and velocity. And now if we go in here and then try to move, you can see that we are getting some like this. Could see. And of course, if you play around with it more, change the sprite size and all, it would work even better. So what I want to do is I want to shoot it from my character. So how we can do it and how we can create a projectile that actually moves it like a missile, homing missile basically. So let's just go in here and let me add something that we can shoot. So let's go in here and I'll add a spear, I guess, like this. This would be our homing target. I don't know how to dynamically change stuff, so at least I'll show you how we can target it, and then maybe watch another lock on target or something which would help you. What we need to do is we actually need to create a projectile component or projectile blueprint. So go into blueprint, actor, call it bp underscore, I guess, projectile missile tutorial. Double click on this one. This one needs to be a projectile component. So go to add, make sure it is a projectile movement. So this one basically tells that, or it is like pre stuff that is created by Unreal for projectile. In here we will add Niagara particles. So Niagara particle system component. And one more thing, you can actually play around with it and add like say smoke animation, add some more cooler animation that you want. You could watch any other tutorial online to create some stuff like this which doesn't basically move. Or you could, even if it's moving, you could actually make it that it is, you could do some changes which makes it that it does not move in your version. And we will basically use our projectile movement to make it move, and this one would be stationary. You could see like just how we moved around here like manually. So in here we added Niagara, and then we can actually search for it. So ns underscore missile, and you could see we actually got it around here. Now what I want to do is I actually want to create a box collision which would actually control all the collision and make sure it is root of this default scene root. I think for projectile we have to keep this as the root, else it would not work. So you could say this is the top one, and then in the box we can, if you scale this, it would kind of mess it up, I guess. Nope, it is working. But what I like to do is, instead of changing the scale, I like to change the box extent. You're free to use a sphere collision too. I don't know which one does like better, but I guess this is good enough for me. If I, let's say, add this pp underscore here and then maybe do simulate, you could say it just dropped down. Okay, so let's pause this, go into our projectile movement, and here we need to set the initial speed to be, I guess, 1000 and max speed to be 1500. Play around with it, it's your choice how you want to make it look. If I now simulate, it is always going to shoot at the red area, right? Because red is front in Unreal, which is X. Let's make it be like this. I'm in local axis, okay, so that I can see which direction it is facing. If you're in global, it will always look at the same direction. Global is basically like northeast, west, south, and you could think of local as front, left, right. So if two people were told to like face north, they will face the same direction, but if two people were told to face like front, then it would be based on where they were looking, right? There are like good enough tutorials online. If I do this play, you could see this is how it looks. Let's not select this and let's do this and see how this looks. And you could see it looks cool. It looks a bit different than what I had created. If you want, you could even add a, I guess, shape location in here. If you add a shape location of, I guess, 50, then it would create like this different kind of shape around it, so that it is like much more spread out. So I'll just delete this missile tutorial and we will go and do some changes. Okay, so first of all, let's create something that can actually shoot. So right now all we have is in our projectile tutorial is a projectile component, which is 1000 initial speed, 1500 max speed, a Niagara particle, and a box collision. That's all we have. In our third person blueprint, you could use first person, third person, it's your choice. This is something I created previously, so let's move that away. There's a sequence node. You could add sequence node in front of it if you want, or you could just make it at the end. It just makes it easier to manage, right? So instead of keeping on going right, we can add some sequence node, add some pins, and then we can keep going down and down. So from here we could say is that get all actors of class. This is not a good way to, I guess, get the homing stuff. I don't know what's the best way to select a target, but for now what I'm doing is I'm saying that get every actor in this project in here, or actually not like this. Let's do get all actors of class with the tag. So I want to get all actors of the class with the tag, I guess, target. We will call it target. So whichever actor has the target, and this one is actually a static mesh actor. So if you were using a blueprint, it would have been, for example, this one is just a Niagara actor, I guess. If I use this one, then it is an actor, because again, if you go in here, it is an actor. For me, I know that this sphere is static mesh actor, so I can just say that, hey, get a static mesh actor. So look for every element in this scene which has static mesh actor, and look for the one that has the tag target. So if I go in here and then add some tag to it and call it as target, make sure everything is perfectly written, like T capital and all. We can get all of this and it will basically create an array. So if there were 5, 10, then it would basically create an array. For this case, I only have one, so I'll just say that get the first one, which is 0, because array starts with 0. So we know that this is the only one, we will get this one as the first one, because that's the only one that has the tag target. And then I could go in here, I could create an actor in here, which is going to be called as the homing target, which is supposed to be a class of actor. So like actor object reference, set this as the homing target. So you might be wondering, like, why am I even doing a homing target in the blueprint third person? We should actually be doing it in the projectile, because this is where we actually set it to homing, right? So if I search here, you can see we have homing around here. But the thing is, we need to actually send this message that this is my homing target to the projectiles. Oh, like there needs to be a way to send a message for that. So to do that in our projectile one, we actually need to go here and get our projectile movement and search for set homing target component. So this one basically would basically tell the projectile movement that this is the target that we need to actually home towards, or homing, is that even the word, home towards. And what I could do is I can promote this to a variable and then say that I want this one to be instance editable and I want it to be exposed on spawn. So why am I doing on exposed on spawn? Because this is a projectile, right? So a projectile can only be spawned basically. There is obviously a method called object pooling, but I don't really understand. I know what it is used for, but for time being we will just do like the basic one, because that's how my brain can understand. But when we do expose on spawn and do instance editable, if I go into this one, I'll search for, let's say, debug key, like any random debug key, and go in here and do left click. So right now whenever I do left click, it will run this stuff. Again, this is only development only. So if you are actually creating a game, you would not actually be using this one. You would be using the enhanced input action mapping and all that, which I already have a video on. But this is good to just test quickly. When I press this button, I want to do something that is spawn and actor. So here spawn actor from class. Now which class it is we want to spawn this projectile movement. So let's search for projectile tutorial around here, and you could see that as soon as I selected this, I got this option in the spawn actor stuff, because we had actually selected this and made it to be exposed on spawn. So now I can send a message from my character that this is going to be the homing target whenever I spawn a blueprint. So whenever I spawn this blueprint, I can basically input a message around here. And remember, we created this homing target, and then what we did was we just got all the actors with class target and set it as a variable. I can simply just go in here and then set it, but it will not go because this one requires a scene component. So you search for, I guess, root component and then add it like this, and it works basically. So what we are basically saying is that get all mesh actor which has a target which we already have, which we only have one. We basically are saying that, hey, this is going to be my homing target. So when this spawns, this sphere is going to be set as my homing target. When I do press, I want to spawn it like this. But again, for this spawning, we actually need to give spawn transform, because if I try to compile, it will give me an error. I also like to do is try to spawn ignore collisions. So it will, I think it ignores the collision at that particular location, but after that it enables the collision. So it does not collide with player, but we still need to do some settings. So in here, it is transform. So transform is basically location, rotation, and scale. So if I split, we get location, rotation, scale. In my character, I want to use an arrow. So there is already an arrow, but this is a bit different. I don't know what this is used for. So I'm actually going to create my own arrow. I can just place it on top wherever I want, so that it is like this. I like to call this as, I guess, shooting arrow. It doesn't have to be arrow. It could be a scene component or anything that you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this arrow and say that get world location. So wherever it is in the world, get that location and spawn it from there. So this one would always be at my character. So if I go in here and say that it is ticked, right? So make sure it is not hidden in game so that you could see. If I do play, You could see this arrow is now like stuck around here, and it is already spawning. You could see it is already spawning. If I do left click, and it is spawning from this location. Also, you could see it is going in, I don't know which direction it is going. It is always facing that direction for some reason. That is because we haven't really set the rotation of it. So if I go into my this one and do, let's say, get world rotation and set it to the rotation. I don't want to do anything for scale, but if we do for rotation, it will basically just throw that from that location like this. You could see another issue, it is like it is not getting destroyed. So you could see so many of them were spawning. So we got something which is very basic. Let me do a quick overview. We will do some more changes, but I want to give an overview in case you are confused what we did till now. So we created a projectile component in which we basically added our Niagara particle, a box collision, and a projectile movement with some initial speed. In the event graph, we have basically set a homing target component in our projectile movement that, hey, this is going to be my project homing target component, and we have set it to expose on spawn and instance editable, so that when we spawn this one with my left click, we can basically spawn this projectile, and here we can use this shooting arrow to give it some location and rotation. And because we set it as expose on spawn, we can use this to just send the message that, hey, I want this target to be used as the homing target, which we actually just did it around here, which is very basic. Get all actors with class target, and it will do that. But now what I want to do is I want it to be homing, right? And not just homing, but I also want the missiles to be spread out. I also want to spawn like 5 of them, not just 1 of them on left click. So let's do one step at a time. So if I go in here and then move it a bit ahead, I can go in here and say for loop, and here we could say that 0 to 4. So it will loop this 5 times. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, and it will loop this one 5 times every time I do left click. So if I now go in here and do left click, you would see 5 of them are spawning. Maybe you look at the right side, you would see 5 of them are spawning. So that's one thing that we fixed. But now all of them are spawning at the same location. So what we could do is we could go in here, and if I select this arrow, if I rotate this one, nothing's happening because it is rotating in this way. But if I do this one, we can say we can rotate it up and down. So let's say that I want to spawn the missiles at, I guess, 20 to 90 degrees. Okay, or just do like 20 to 90. Okay, so Y should be 20 to 90, and Z should be from -90 to 90. So we can say that get a random value between 90 to -90, and also like 0 to 90, I guess, or for 20 to 90, so that there's some like a bit above. And for X we can just do normal. So instead of doing it in world rotation, we will do relative, because in the world the rotation might be different, but relatively it will use these values, right? Because it is related to this stuff. If you don't understand what relative and world is, there are like lots of videos. It's very basic, you can learn it like very quickly. So for the rotation, we'll do get relative rotation like this, so that we get this values, which is like 0, 0, 0. So if we cannot even add it, right? So I don't know if we can see it in here or not. Okay, there we go. So you could see this is the, let me see. Okay, so you could see it is always going to be 0. If you look at the bottom right, it is always 0 because we are using relative to this one. But I don't know if you can see the world rotation. So this is actually world rotation. So you could see the world rotation would be different. So we don't want that, which is why we use relative. I will say that split this so that we get XYZ, and then we'll say make rotator, because again if we split it, we also want to add it like this. Or you could even do is you could split this and then give like each value differently. I don't want to make this like way too huge, which is why I'm going to add it like this. So like we said, we don't want any changes to X, but for Y we will actually do is random float, not this one, random float in range. So for the Y, which was this one, we'll do 20 to 90. So it will basically give us like 20 to 90 random values for each one of them. And then we will duplicate this, and for the Z we will do 90 to negative 90, like this. So our rotation would be basically randomized between these values. So if I go now and play, you could see they are now spanning from like very random directions. If you want, you could reduce it some values so that they don't go like too much. Just play around with it. Now we have done all this. We have also sent the homing target, which should be, but why is it not homing? Simply because we haven't enabled homing. So if I do enable this like this, you need to also increase this a lot. So I'm going to make it 5000, and you could see as soon as I clicked, it went there, but it is not looking that good, to be honest, because it is instantly going there, right? So you could see it is instantly going there. I don't like how this goes. So in our projectile, I'm going to disable the homing one, and what I'm going to do is on the event begin play, I'm going to add a delay of 0.5 seconds. I'm going to get the projectile movement, and then I'm going to set homing as true. So it will not instantly start targeting it. It will do it after 0.5 seconds. So if I now play, let's say it first goes into its in each direction, and then it starts to go in here. If I make this to 1, where is it? If I make the duration to be 1 for the delay, you would see for 1 second it doesn't do anything. It just goes in its own direction and then it starts shooting. So 0.5 is something that works for me nicely. And you could see we got some nice homing missile, and also right now there is no destruction and all, which is kind of annoying. So here's what I'm going to do. In our projectile, in the box 1, we need to go down to the collision settings. Where is it? The collision, in the preset, let's select to custom and do block all. Everything should be blocked except the pawn, so our character does not get hit, and then except other projectiles. So other projectiles would not get hit and other pawns would not get hit. Everything else would get hit. It's your choice what you need to do, but for me this is what I'm using. It is still connecting me, not sure why. So what I just did was I did ignore all and I did world static, world dynamic, and it is still not working. So I think it is based on like the third person character, but I have set it to ignore the pawn. So I'm kind of confused why is it doing all this stuff. Let's try to ignore this one. Okay, it works, but again it stops there. But if you have worked with knowing how this collision works, then you will know that it is not a good way that I've done, where it is only doing or blocking only one stuff. Test purposes, I'm making this only as block for world static, and this is world static. If you are using something dynamic and all, then you will need to make sure this is enabled. But if I enable this, then my third person template is actually blocking. One easy fix would be to just get this stuff and move it forward, and that should kind of fix it. Nope, it's still not fixing this. Why is it not fixing? Not sure. I'm not sure why this one is not ignoring the It is set to always spawn ignore collision. Not 100% sure why it is why is it using world, why is it like getting blocked when using world dynamic, but I guess for time being you can understand that this is how it works. And this one is world world static. And what we simply need to do is, in our projectile, I could say that when this box collides with something or on component hit, I could just say that destroy actor, so that it destroys itself. So you could see it basically just destroyed itself every time it hits. What you could also do is you could go in here and then say break the hit result, open this, and before destroying it, on the impact point spawn Niagara emitter or spawn system at location. This is the impact point where it is, and you could add any impact stuff that you created. I'm not showing how to create this, it's very basic. A quick explanation would be, if you go into the impact, all I've simply done is created a spawn burst 10 and I've set it to be once. Where is it? In this one I've set it to once, so that it only plays once and then gets destroyed. Initial particle size basically made it small, and all I've simply done in here is set to spawn burst instantaneous, so instantly it spawns 10, and added a velocity from point like this, so that it spawns outside. There's lots of impact videos, I don't want to make the impact videos in this one, but basically when it hits something, it creates this impact point like this at that location, and then it destroys itself. So if you go there, you could see it is now created that impact point. And you could say it looks pretty cool. You can actually play around with it more and try to make it more magic missile type rather than making it look like this. Everything else is basic. You just you add a component in here in the projectile where you add an audio component like this, add some audio that you want to use. I like to make this 0.1 because we are spawning 5 of them together, so it would pay 5 audios instantly instead of 1. So if you make it to 1, it would be like very loud. I'll use this one. If I now go, you could see it's basically placed that. And we can also do is that in this projectile on the hit location, we can also do is play sound 2D. There's also play sound at location, so play sound at location if you want to do like even better, and then use this impact point as the location, and then play I don't know, like explosion. Do I have an explosion? There we go. It spawns and then basically touches that and then does damage. And like I said, it's very easy to actually do damage. So if you are using any interface, you could just create an interface which would be like do damage kind of stuff, like do damage. I already have one, and then you could send it to the other actor like this. So whichever the hit actor is, just send a damage, and you could set like 20 damage, so that this is an interface. I already have video on how to create an interface, and when it hits, it's basically going to send the message that hey, if you have this component, then do 20 damage. And yeah, that's all how I created this weird looking stuff. I don't know if this video was like much more confusing, but because I'm like very fairly new to this Unreal Engine, my vocabulary is not that good when it comes to explaining stuff. So I hope you understand that, and as I progress, I would try to make my vocabulary better to make it work like in much more technical way, so that I can explain it in a much more better and profound way. So yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Hope you enjoyed.